we're not even talking about imprisonment. When you've been imprisoned by abuse, and especially to that degree, you need so much help. You need reprogramming to the next level. And they say, like, if you've been abused for like 15 years, it takes 7 years for you to unravel, reprogram, and be like normal, right?
Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. We have had an amazing conversation. And so I promised that I would bring some books for a giveaway. And you're going to decide the date. What date's it going to be when we're going to give it away? If they like, subscribe, and comment, then they're entered into the drawing.
And they subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Oh, that would be good. Subscribe to our YouTube channels. And then you'll give these books away. And I'm going to sign them.
Mm-hmm. So December 20th is going to be the first giveaway. Okay. And then we're going to give away one every month in the year 2025.
Okay. Let's do it. I love it.
14 books.
14 books.
November, December. So let's do one in November.
Okay, let's do it.
And then one in December on the 20th. And then every month in 2025.
We'll give away some more books.
Yep.
Because we're starting a movement.
We are, and we need you to help us.
We do.
And if you are a professional in this category of abuse, we would love to hear from you. And there'll be an extra level of giving back for you. So
thank you so much for joining us, being a part of us.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. It's interesting. It's like in our own lives, our traumatic moments seem to stay kind of with us. I mean, they're kind of always ever present, and we're always trying to go back to, go away. But it's interesting when we watch something or we experience something, a movie or a play or something like that, what we take with us or away from it is almost always, it was funny. The positive things. It's interesting, but we don't do
something
that with our
we
lives.
haven't taken care of completely, like an emotion that we might not have, like that we've brushed under the rug for good reason. We don't have time for that right now. We got to make money. We got to earn. We got to raise our kids. We got to do all the things we have to do as a woman.
Absolutely.
And honestly, I'm going to be honest, I do not care to go to plays. They're not my thing. I've been to Rent. In New York. Mm-hmm. I've been to...
I produced Rent over at Canta.
See? Mm-hmm. I looked you up on Wikipedia. I was like, oh, impressive. But I still am not a person that goes to these kind of things. But you know what? I was like, but it's her, and I want to know more about her. And this is before I watched your documentary. Yeah. So even I had barely even known you or what you had been through. Yeah. And I was like, I want to go because she's going to be on the show, and I want to meet her in person. It would make it such a better. Okay, so I go last night, and I had watched maybe 20 minutes of your documentary on Netflix. And so I go last night, and it was quite a spiritual situation, like a whole emotional, like, I don't know what happened to me. Yeah. And I'm pretty sure Heath was like, what? He didn't say a word. And then the show was over, and I said a couple things during the show, like, she's not going to make it. Like the daughter, right? Yeah. Like, this is going to be emotional, just so you know. This is a tearjerker. I don't remember all the things. It's been a long time. Yeah. And then, he starts seeing me cry, and we go outside, and it was like 10 p.m. Our bedtime's 9 p.m. So he's like, we can't stay too late. I go, Jan says we're going to talk afterwards. And he goes, okay, but we're not going to stay too late. And I'm like, no problem. Like,
we won't stay too long.
No problem. And so I get out there, and I'm waiting in line to be able to, like, give you a hug and tell you how amazing you were, and all the like all the people were out there. Like, there's not a lot, right? The whole cast was amazing. Yeah. And the whole six
of us. Yeah.
And I was like, wow, you guys could have made the movie even. So then I get a chance to hug you, and I couldn't say a word. I just start crying in your shoulder. And I was like, this is weird. I am not that person.
Huh.
So I was like, we're not going to talk. I'm just going to cry. And you said something. Don't even know what it was. And I walked away and I went into this bathroom that said, do not enter.
Mm-hmm.
And the lady in there's like, what are you doing in here? And I'm so sorry. And she saw that I was crying.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I'm so sorry. I just don't know what's going on. And I had to pee. And I sat down on the toilet right in front of her. And she's like, you're fine. And she just kept cleaning the dishes that were on the set from the film.
Yeah, that was
and I
our
left.
stage crew person, Rachel. Mm-hmm.
Heath opened the car door for me. He didn't say a word.
You were in.
We went home and he was like, that was interesting. That affected her. Then, okay, do you want to say anything about that? Because I'm going to go into some things.
I just know that kind of an experience. Are we recording?
We've been, yeah.
Okay, good. I just know that for me as a kid, being in theater and being on stage literally saved my life because it was the one place where I could scream, I could cry, I could have all of those emotions that I wasn't allowed to talk about. I couldn't tell anybody because I didn't want my family to be harmed. I didn't want anybody to be vaporized. I didn't want my little sister to be taken. And on stage is where I shared and got out the emotions. And if I had not have had that, I literally think that I would have taken my own life because I was at a theater camp. And
no
I
doubt.
was 100%.
You are so good at it. Last night I was like, she brings this out of her heart and soul. And actually, everybody around you is supported that too. You could tell that they also, whether it was feeding off of your energy and life experience and situation, I don't know what it was, but that crew right there, unbelievable. I've never enjoyed a play. I've been to New York, San Francisco. You go with the flow. Yeah. People want to do something. You do it. You do it for your kids. You do it for your mom, whatever. That was the best experience of my life when it comes to a play.
Wow.
I have never been touched like that in my heart. And I hadn't even watched your documentary yet. Wow. 15 minutes of it. I didn't even know who you were, like to the fullest, right? I just knew that you had a documentary and there was something.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, all of those life experiences, I think, contributed to I always loved to act. I did my first play when I was 7, and I played Gretel in The Sound of Music in our community university, Idaho State University, and the community would do a summer musical. And that was the first thing I ever did, Little Gretel, the littlest girl in Sound of Music. And from that point on, I always knew I wanted to do it, but I did not have any idea how important it would be in my
how it would serve you.
How it would
later.
serve me. In my own catharsis, in my own ability to understand the, human condition.
Well, first off, I want to say that I don't know anybody that's been through something that you and your family have been through. And I have been through some things personally. You probably don't know much about my story, and that's just fine. You can look it up later. But I know I have dug deep into a lot of people's stories, people that are in, cults, people that are in, people that just want to fit in. So they fit into these crimes because these crime lords love them and tell them they love them. So they do these crazy things by killing other people because, somebody loves them and tells them to do. Anything I've ever seen on a movie, your real story tops all of that. Mm-hmm. And I have still 15 minutes to go on your real story for the documentary. Mm-hmm. But like what you have been through, it's just amazing that you're still alive. So I understand why you would say that, like, you would take your life. I get that.
Yeah, and that's interesting because so many stories that I listen to and that I've heard and that I've been, that have been shared with me and just brief, somebody will just send me a little message on some social media platform or just grab me like at a theater experience. I've had people whisper in my ear, I watched your story. It happened to me. It was my so-and-so, priest, dentist, whatever. People know that they're not alone. And I felt so strongly at some point that sharing my story was primarily to help other survivors, to help other people who've been through it, to give them a voice and to give them confidence that they can get to the other side of it, that you can actually heal. And not that it all goes away, and not that you don't cycle through and things trigger you and you have issues, but there is hope. And I always knew I wanted to be the poster child for that. I want to be the poster child for hope, for gratitude, for being able to take whatever you've been handed and do the very best that you can from there on out. And I believe that helping other people do the same has probably been, the most rewarding part of my journey, in my healing, in my own healing.
Yeah. And that is important, right? Our healing is the most important thing. Mm-hmm. But in the same sense, like, we also have to like live and pay the bills and do all these things. And that's not always easy either. It doesn't translate.
Mm-hmm. It's true. And a lot of those things are affected because of what crime or abuse or what we've been through. Oftentimes that's part of the healing, is to get help so that you are not stuck. It's like the broken record. And it keeps skipping in that one place and you can never get to the rest of the music. And so, you have to figure out how to pick up the needle and move it past and re-groove your life. And sometimes you need professional help to do that. You need a therapist.
I think every time.
Yeah.
You need even if it's a professional or semi-professional or just a person.
Yes.
That's good at it. Like, You don't have to have the education, but some people are just naturally good at helping.
Yeah. And
you've got to have that. It's not 2 years, 5 years, 7 years. It's your whole life.
Right. Exactly. It's a journey. It's not a destination. And yet you can enjoy that journey. You don't have to be stuck in the drama and the trauma all the time. There's a lot of people that have PTSD or CPTSD that I know don't have much of a choice. Like, it just happens and they're at that place. I really have found that there are certain things that people can do to literally change the brain pattern, to literally change the trigger pattern in their lives. And so, I hope people will explore some of the things that I know I have done that have helped me, so that I can repattern, recreate, reimagine.
All this stuff that you have spent a lot of time, energy, and money on to help you become who you are, which is an amazing person. I haven't known you long, but I'm going to tell you, I'm pretty sure you're one of the most amazing people I've ever met. Oh. Driving here, I was like, don't drive 1 mile over the speed limit. You cannot be late. You cannot, nothing can get in the way of meeting this woman in person besides seeing her on stage last night. So, but with that said, everything that you have gone through to learn, to grow, you're wanting to give that back.
That's true. I do want to give it back. I hope that I can continue to have the ability to do that for the rest of my life, because I honestly feel like I am so lucky, blessed, and grateful that I did survive, and that my family survived, and that my parents ended up together, and that my sisters and we are all close. And I mean, I just get emotional every time I think about those who are abused by parents or grandparents. And it's so many people that's where the abuse happened. That's where their crime story began, at home. And I don't know how people survive that, but they do. And I want them to have a family or a home with me,
Well, they survived it, but you went through something more traumatic than those situations that you just described to me. And you survived it. So you should know how it's possible.
Yeah.
you have been through whatever you needed to go through to survive it, because you were close to taking your own life.
Right. Yeah, I had a whole plan. I had decided that after I got back from this theater camp, if I hadn't been vaporized, because I was going to have my birthday, my 16th birthday, at the drama camp. It was a 5-week camp. I don't know how my parents ever let me go, but we had a time, it's back in the day where the phone was on the wall. We didn't have those cell phone things. And there was a time when they would call and I would be there to take the call, from the person that was running the dorm where we stayed. And I just remember knowing that if I was still alive after my 16th birthday, that I would go home and I would tell my little sister Susan what the plan or the mission was.
The mission. That's the word I hear a lot in your documentary.
Yeah. That the mission was that, I was to have this baby that was going to save this alien planet. And if I couldn't produce that baby, and of course I'm still pre-puberty at 16, I haven't even started my period. I was like almost graduated from high school.
Which is weird because most people start their period at before getting into high school.
Yeah.
You got lucky there.
Yeah. And I think partly it might have been the abuse too that was
keeping you from having that
I don't know.
cycle.
I was a senior in high school and I was close to graduation. I was 17 when I graduated from high school and I didn't start my period until the right before I graduated. I was almost 18 years old.
I don't know anybody that didn't start their period before freshman year.
Right?
Not anybody.
Yeah.
So that was something that was probably what you believe in. I know we all have who or what we think we believe in, something higher power.
Right.
That higher power kept you from a baby would have changed this whole story.
Yeah, it really would have.
And so your body protected you that way.
Yeah, I believe that's true. And my little sister, who was also on the short list of half alien, half human, and that she would be taken and then she would have to do the mission. I couldn't live with it. And I knew where my dad had purchased and where he hid his gun. And I was going to tell her about the mission. And then if she didn't want to do it, which of course I didn't want her to do it, then I would take her life and then I would take my own life. And that was the plan after the theater camp. But a boy at that theater camp bought me an ice cream in the bowling alley where there was an ice cream parlor. And he was in front of me in the line. And I knew he liked me, but I avoided him. I played by the rules. I didn't do, I was like, only when we had a scene on stage would I talk to him, and he purchased my ice cream. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, I'm going to be vaporized.
You're in debt to him for one.
Yeah. And I wasn't vaporized.
Because the aliens have said, and when you watch the documentary, you'll understand what she's talking about.
Yes. No talking to boys.
No talking to your dad.
Right? No relationship at all with any other male person. And there were a lot of rules and there were a lot of consequences if you broke the rules. That my middle sister, Karen, would go blind. And she had always knew she needed her sight because she was so into certain things that had to do with visual things and like medicine and science and things that she wanted to do in her life. And
which B knew about and used against you.
Of course. That's what he was so good at. That's what all groomers and master manipulators are really good at. They figure out where's the vulnerability, and that's what we'll use to, screw in that put the last nail in the coffin to make sure they don't talk.
Yeah, and it's not even a coffin. It is literally your brain makeup.
Yeah.
It is a scientific, our brains have a pattern, and he plugged in all the right coding to make you think you were literally, when you woke up off those drugs that he gave you,
right?
You thought you aliens had visited.
Yeah,
at age
I thought
12.
aliens had come and taken us both.
Yeah.
And I didn't see him at first. It took a day or day and a half. I don't know. Time was so warped because I was drugged. But literally, when I finally saw him, I was like, oh my gosh, somebody I know. And I didn't
You were like,
understand.
thank goodness.
Yeah. Because he had set himself up to be like, the favorite uncle. I mean, we were almost 3 years into this relationship with him and his family.
And at those 3 years are very vulnerable years mentally for somebody your age.
Yeah, I was
It's
9.
not like you were 28 to 30, then you can like understand like, okay, this doesn't seem right, whether you listen to your gut or not. But at that age, you're still programming your mind.
Right. And when you're isolated, when you're in a strange place and you're restrained. I mean, I had straps around my wrists and my ankles when I woke up in the back of that motorhome. You're isolated. You're hearing this high-pitched, funny, staccato sounding voice talking in this monotone, female companion. I mean, it was like this really scary. And of course, he'd made sure that those 3 years or 2.5 years of our friendship, where he would take all the kids to the science fiction movie, he would sit down and watch the TV shows, Lost in Space, Planet of the Apes. I mean, you think about Star Trek. These are things that we watched on TV. I Dream of Jeannie, Bewitched. They all had, fantasy in them. And those were our favorite shows. And we didn't have a whole bunch of other information at our fingertips. We were pretty innocent. I mean, we were just normal kids, but you came home and you watched, these 5 shows.
And you
every
thought
day.
that they could possibly be real.
Yeah.
Like I remember the Jetsons.
Yeah.
We're going to have all
Like
these
someday.
spaceships and we're going to fly from our friend's house to our friend's house.
Yeah.
And you thought that was going to be, like if it's not happening now, but it's on the horizon.
And it was the space age anyway. It was the 70s.
Yeah.
Everything was a race to space. So even our favorite hamburger joint was called, it was called the Tasty Treat, home of the space burger, because they would take this little piece of bread and make it round and put the meat and cheese inside and then seal the edges and fry it. It looked like a little spaceship.
Yeah.
And it was everywhere. I mean,
it was easy to believe that this was where our life was going.
Yeah.
And it's
And
not
when you're 9 and 10 and 11.
It's not untrue even at our age now.
Yeah.
It's a thing that we're still trying to make possible.
Well, look at AI. All of a sudden, we've got all kinds of robots and things going.
And who knows how long it's been going on for years and years and years prior to now.
Absolutely. So I had my plan. I had my plan of what I was going to do and how I was going to end my life and her life. And the fact that that boy bought that ice cream and I didn't die made me pause. I paused and thought, is this real? It was the first time I'd ever had that thought. Like, are they real? Because now the boys bought the ice cream. I just had my 16th birthday at the theater camp. And then the final piece of that puzzle was I came home and got asked to go to a dance. And I was like, my dogs didn't die when my mom, while I was at theater camp, I thought, I've done something wrong with this boy. My dogs are going to die. She said, no, they just got sick, but they're fine. So the
And your
dogs didn't
sister's
die.
not blind.
My sister's not blind. My other sister's still at home. Dad's not dead. And the last piece of that puzzle for me was, I'm going to say yes to this date and go on a date to a dance. And then I'll know for sure. I'll either be vaporized, Karen will be blind, Susan will be missing, Dad will be dead, I don't know. Or I won't be.
Or I was living in something different.
Yeah. Or this was all jokes on me, and you don't know what to do with that.
Right.
For 4 years of your life.
Then you feel like, should I feel foolish? Should I be insecure? Because that seems like I'm a dum-dum to even think that. And then like you get in your head.
Yeah, how do you tell? How do you explain that to somebody? I mean, I have people still, that, they're not nice, but that are like, what were you, like raised under a rock? I mean, what kind of an idiot? And I'm like,
it's not like that. People join cults, people join gangs just to be loved. And he loved you. Mm-hmm. And before he loved you, he showed that he loved his parents and your parents loved him back.
Yes, and his wife and his 5 children.
Right. So it was a community of love.
Absolutely.
And when you are in a community of love, you do what you whatever you would need to do for those people, especially if your parents are supporting it, you know, like you just have the backing of everybody.
Absolutely.
Your church, your bishop, the whole
Everybody.
thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And hundreds of activities with this family. I mean, we did, 2 and 3 times every week. We either did, our family night together, Sunday dinner, go on an outing, take the boat, the snowmobile, the whatever. He was so good at
Because he was
building.
obsessed with you.
Yes. And he was grooming everybody.
He was for years. I have to ask, because I always wonder, like, people aren't born saying, I want to be, a bank robber. I want to be addicted to drugs. I want to, be a child molester. Like, I want to manipulate people's minds. They're not born that way. Something happens in their life where they twist in something in their mind. And then they carry it on and they imprint it. What do you think B's life was like as a kid, as a child? Why did he do this?
I can't say why exactly because I don't really know. I have secondhand information from talking to both of my parents at different times throughout my life and healing and trying to understand what happened to me. And they were always so good at giving me their time and anything that they could, that they knew. They never were defensive. I was so lucky. I had parents who accepted all the responsibility. I don't know why I didn't see it. I don't know why this happened. I'm so sorry. It's my fault. I mean, my mom and dad were just the best.
Unbelievable. Because that's not normal. First off, we're going to come back to that in my experience, because I do want to touch on your parents. And some people might not appreciate what they did. But for me, they did a lot in your favor. So we'll come back to that.
Yeah.
But I wonder about B.
Yeah, the
what's
story
his childhood like?
From my mom and my dad, two different kind of looks at his childhood according to what he told them. One thing that he told my dad that I remember Dad telling me at some point was that his aunt, he said, I had sex with my aunt when I was like 5 years old.
4, I remember.
Or 4,
yeah.
or something like that. Yeah.
Crazy.
It was something like that. And my dad they were at lunch or something. And of course, this is pre-kidnapping, pre-anything. And he was like,
Pre both kidnappings.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And he was like, how terrible. I mean, my dad was shocked. Again, they didn't even know the word pedophile. And that's how he said it. I had sex with my aunt. And he's this little tiny kid, and almost like a badge of honor or something. And then he went on further about, and if you've never been with a French girl, I can tell you, he said something like that to my dad. And my dad said it never dawned on me because I didn't know any pedophiles or child molesters. I mean, I knew what a child molester was, but the way he talked, it was more like these things that it was almost like a badge of honor.
Yeah.
And he said, but I went home and I told your mom, I said, do you know that his aunt, and he said, I might have even used the word abused him because he said she wasn't too many years older than him. She wasn't like 30 years old. According to him, she was maybe 10 or 11. So it wasn't that much of a difference. And I don't even know if this story is true. All I know is it's what he said to my dad. And my dad told me that. And then there was something that he said to my mom, where he had talked about my stepfather was he just didn't like me. But if I would take care of my little sister, who was basically his half sister, it was the child that they had. If I would take care of her, then my stepfather was nicer to me. So I was always taking care of my little sister. I was always making sure that she was tucked in. I was always making sure that she had a bath. I was always making sure that there was food or that I was protecting her. So my mom said, looking back on that, at the time, I thought, well, I'm so sorry that you had a mean stepdad. And I'm so glad that you took care of your little sister, all those things. But now, of course, hindsight's 2020. She's like, maybe that's when he started to be an abuser. Maybe he was being abused. And of course, that's what happens. Kids act that out with another kid. And that grows as your hormones grow and as you grow and as your mental capacity has been compromised the moment that you're abused. Arrested development is a real thing. It's a serious thing.
Mm-hmm.
All of those things and those factors, I think, can do exactly what you were saying. They can turn someone into, I don't know if a monster is the right word, like the Eric and Lyle Menendez story that we both just watched recently. I don't know.
It imprints.
It imprints. And I think the problem is that they don't look like monsters to the rest of the world.
And we don't feel like monsters. And I say he, we, all of us
Right.
have had situation. And I don't know to what degree, but when you have something happen to you at a certain age, you think it's normal. And you go on
Right. You don't know any
behaving
different.
and performing that way. Mm-hmm. And it comes out as manipulation to some other people, but to that one person, it's just the way life is. So for him, he manipulated your whole family.
Yeah, he
but
did.
But somehow he learned how to be a manipulator.
Yes, and I think that those are learned things. And I think there are very few sociopaths or psychopaths that are actually born. I think they are almost always created. Almost always. There might be some genetic code that makes you a psychopath. I'm not sure. But when I was on Dr. Ramani's show, she turned to me at one point and she goes, "Oh no, he wasn't a sociopath. He was a psychopath. His pathology shows that he was that." And I'm like, wow, what takes a person
born
to
that way, she means?
No, she wasn't meaning he was born that way, but that psychopathy is something that usually stems from, some sort of mental breakdown, certainly
behavior.
Yes.
Something that they ingested, something that they saw, something that they experienced.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel that way about the world. Do I believe that people are born she's that could be he's? Yes. Do I believe that people are born that ultimately he has a more like kindred spirit and relationship with another he and she with another she? 100%. I believe all of that and I support it 100%.
Me too.
I think there's a large degree of it now that's just like, oh, let me experiment. You know, it's optional. You know, that part, that is whatever. And that doesn't bother me either because I've experimented in my own life.
Well, and most of us are curious anyway.
Right. And now it's a little more normalized. Like, it's just like, you know, just pick. No, you're born, you know, if you're a boy or a girl, whatever parts you have. Mm-hmm. But then we also have these like layers of where we've got a lot going on as we're getting raised and our parents are either there, they're not there, one's there. Who knows? They're getting manipulated. They're confused. There's just so many things.
And the trickle-down effect to the children and to what happens as you get into being a tween and a teenager. And if you don't have good support and you haven't had normalcy and you don't know the difference, you only are doing what your brain is supposed to do. It's telling you to survive. It's helping you survive. And that
survival
may be
mode.
in the worst possible kind of survival mode, but that's what we do.
And in that survival mode, you're saying, I want to do the best I possibly can.
Yeah.
And that is your best as I possibly can. Mm-hmm. Even though you constantly say, I know I can do better. But you're really doing the best you possibly can. And constantly saying, I know I can do better. Mm-hmm. So not only are you doing the best you possibly can, you're beating yourself up because you always say, I can do better because I know there's better. Mm-hmm. I look at other people and I see they're doing better. Like, why am I so screwed up?
Yeah. And the thing is that everybody is at a different point in wherever their life experiences took them, what roads they had to go down. It's why there's just no room really for judgment. And I hope that there is help for those created monsters as well.
Yeah.
I really do. And I'm at that point in my life where I don't want them around other children. I think they have to be locked up and be in a facility.
We're not
and
going
they
to
have
get
to whatever.
We're not going to get to lay next to another child with a box next to us.
No, with a
during
headset.
our like recovery because the doctor said so.
Right.
And
but that was a real thing, which is so interesting.
Well, I watched your show, and this is where I say that for anybody that's listening, please do not hesitate for 1 second. Actually, go watch her documentary on Netflix. You have to.
Yeah, and I hope people will go from watching Abducted in Plain Sight on Netflix to the Peacock series. That's a 9-part series because it tells the story so much better. The documentary is one shocking headline after another, which made it go viral and made me able to do an actual series where you get to see,
break it down and pan it out.
Yes. You understand the psychology of a groomer.
I understood it within the Netflix series, but I've lived that in my life.
Right.
A lot of other people don't know what it's like grooming and all that.
Right.
And they think, oh, her parents are just like, I like my boyfriend. I love him. Heath, he's amazing. But he's never had to deal with any of that psychological, mumbo jumbo.
Yeah.
So he's like, her parents. And I'm like, you have no idea what it is to be manipulated. You just don't. Right. I feel those. And so we can come to your parents now.
Yeah.
I'm so grateful for your parents to be able to have the strength to come out and admit what they did, because it's a lot to be able to admit that.
It's embarrassing for them.
It is embarrassing. But guess what? They love you so much and they're like, what happened? But they're not afraid to say it because they do not want to undermine what you went through.
Yeah, it's really interesting. My mom and dad were so completely honest in that first documentary, Abducted in Plain Sight. And some of the things that they said, I wasn't in the room when they were being interviewed. We were all interviewed separately. I mean, the way that they said certain things about my dad's masturbation experience with Birchtold, my mom's very short-lived affair with him, as they talked about it, and they were so vulnerable and so sad and so disappointed in themselves, I found myself just crying like, this isn't who you are. This was somebody manipulating you into a situation and then holding that mistake that you made. I guess we're all human. I don't think anybody's ascended, I haven't noticed anybody popping out of this world, in a cloud of glory. I think we're all human. We all make mistakes. But when somebody is manipulating that mistake and then they're going to hold it over your head and blackmail you with that mistake, that's really, really evil.
It happens in all levels of life, all the way up to the government.
It does.
Everybody's got a back pocket. They've got some, and now a lot of times those were intentional. I'm going to scratch your back and you're going to scratch mine. You don't know how deep it goes until you're so far into it. But your parents, whether all of that was happening or not, your parents were not afraid to say, this is what happened.
Yeah.
And my baby girl was like a victim and we were a victim.
And the important part of it was that especially my father, who is so tenderhearted, and he was so embarrassed. And for many years, he just didn't really want to talk about it. And we really didn't know exactly what had happened. It was like something happened and I repented and I don't want to talk about it. And when we all heard, kind of plainly what it was, we're like, Dad, this is the sin or the thing, this weight that has been holding you back all these years that you feel so unworthy and terrible about. We're like, guess what, Dad? People make mistakes like that all the time, And even with my mom, I'm like,
I know, but mistakes like that don't have the degree of what happened to you.
Right.
And they make way worse mistakes than what he did. What he did was almost nothing compared to a lot of other situations. But the repercussion for you was to the highest degree.
And that's what pain is.
Hurts his heart.
He's a good dad, and he would have done anything to protect his daughters and to protect me. And My mother was able to talk about her, very short-lived little affair that he coaxed her into. And again, if you watch A Friend of the Family on Peacock, and you have to be sure you watch the series, it's 9 parts, and there's a documentary on Peacock called A Friend of the Family, True Evil, with Andrea Canning, from Dateline, and I go on this whole thing to face all my fears. And my whole family is there except my father, who's deceased. When
did your dad pass away?
In November of 2018.
Okay.
Yeah. So before the Netflix documentary that you're talking about, before it came out on Netflix, it came out in January of 2019. My father died in November of 2018.
Oh.
And I guess in a lot of ways, maybe I'm glad that it was that way. Maybe it was meant to be, because so many people were so mean and unkind about him. And my father was such a good man. I was so lucky to have the parents that I did. And yes, were they
could have abandoned you. They could have ignored it. They could have denied it. They could have done that. And I know about this personally.
Yeah.
The fact that they did not deny it.
No.
The fact that they embraced it, loved you, and tried to figure out how to support your truth.
Yep.
I think your parents are great. I don't care.
You.
I will defend that till the day I die.
I really appreciate it.
But it takes somebody that's been through that to be able to understand.
Yeah. And I often I'll say to somebody, I'll be like, did your parents ever let you go, with a favorite aunt or uncle or with a grandparent by yourself to get ice cream, to a movie, to a game night, to a whatever? I said, you have to imagine the person that you trust so much that you would almost be like, if we die, you raise our kids. Because that's what Berchtold was trying to get my parents to do.
And even then, you can't guarantee it.
Right. But if you know somebody that you would let your children go with because you trust them so much, that's who this guy was. That's how he had positioned himself. And so, when somebody goes, I do have somebody.
But they had trusted him, but they'd already manipulated them personally, separatively.
Oh yeah.
So there was this whole thing going on. It wasn't just, I trust you with my daughter, my son, my whatever.
Oh no.
There was also an intimate relationship with them each, but it was so confusing for them because the way he had, worked it and angled it and postured it. And like you said, and so that their mental state was already unraveled.
Compromised.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. And when you feel guilty about something, you're worrying about your own, how to fix that, how to change that, how to avoid that ever happening again. And that focus, because you're wrapped up in your own guilt or shame or
even desire.
Why did I do that?
Like why
or desire?
You could be.
Then you're not even noticing what else might be happening to your spouse or your child or whatever, because you're wrapped up in your own world of whatever's going on with that person.
He made me feel good in that moment.
Yeah.
Why is that a shame? Why should I feel bad about that? But yet I am married. But then again, I haven't felt that in a long time. And it's very confusing.
It is.
And
very
you're like,
confusing.
Really, why would my creator want me to feel anything less than at my ultimate self? And you have this other person telling you,
giving you some of those kind of,
like what you're feeling is not inaccurate.
Right.
You deserve this.
Yeah.
It's going to be us.
Yeah. He was a master manipulator and talker, but both of my parents, we've had so many conversations about this. They both said, but we immediately felt guilty. We knew what we had done was wrong because they both had a conscience. And because of that, it became so much more about trying to mitigate their own consciousness and what to do about it. And they said, and we think we missed a lot of things until my mother, especially, she said, at one point I knew. It just came over me when your dad and I almost got separated and divorced.
Where they leaned into each other in the movie and they just hugged and they were like, this guy's not coming between us anymore.
And that's really
and our
truly
family.
what my mother said. She said it was at that point that I knew. It was like I could see like the curtains parted, and I
saw behind the curtain.
Yeah. I could see the Wizard of Oz back there pulling the strings, and I knew I was his puppet.
Yep.
And she said, and at that point, everything changed. And then your dad and I just fell into each other's arms. We were crying, literally.
Right.
She said, we fell into each other's arms.
You're like,
And
we've got
I
to
was
save each other
100%.
from this demon.
Yeah. I knew that he was a demon at that point, but I hadn't seen it until then. And they didn't have any idea what had happened to me. I wasn't talking at that point.
No, because you're young and you think you're in love and you were doing whatever you could to be with that person. And the aliens were telling you if you didn't, your family was going to lose their eyesight, their hearing, whatever it was.
Oh yeah, all the things.
Your dog was going to die. And
I was a very, I always have been this way. I'm a person that wants to not only please other people, but I want to help other people. I thought I was saving an entire planet. I had a huge mission, to save all these people that were dying. I mean, talk about him knowing the inner personality and characteristics of just a young girl.
That's a genius mind looking into something and using it against evilly.
Yeah.
Yeah. He could, like, his intelligence is obviously off the Richter scale.
Yeah.
To be able to analyze and use it against you guys, your whole entire family.
Yeah. And each person, he individualized his treatment plan, so to speak. He really was. I hate to give him that much credit, but he was really, really smart.
Otherwise, how would he have fooled you? No ding dong off the, was going to do that to a whole family.
No. And he knew how to do it and got all the people in our neighborhood. Everybody liked him. I mean, he just was a master groomer. He just knew it.
Did you, what is your therapy been like since? What did you have to go through you seem so normal and amazing and lovable, and as soon as I meet you, I just love you. What did you have to go through to get rid of your dysfunctions?
A lot of it, I did a lot of writing, and I didn't even know I was giving myself therapy. I kept a journal, and I journaled. So a lot of things got worked out that way. I read a lot of really what I would call just self-help books that I got at the thrift store. I would read things like Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway, and Think and Grow Rich, and The Master Key to Riches. And but it wasn't always riches like money. It was about, the Screw Tape Letters and, C.S. Lewis. And I would read a lot of things that
reprogrammed your mind.
Yeah, that really did help me
clear the tapes.
Yeah. And that was huge. And I did see a therapist. I mean, I definitely believe in that.
I do too.
And I know that helped me a lot. And then I would take a break from that.
The right
years.
therapist.
Yeah, the right one. And they didn't have all of the things that we have today. I mean, literally, you didn't have EMDR, you didn't have DBT therapy, you didn't have IFS, you didn't have so many different therapies that I have now done. They didn't have retreats. They barely talked about sexual assault. I mean, it was like rape of a child. That term didn't come about for years.
It was common sense therapy. Mm-hmm. Talking about love, forgiveness, fear, all these things.
Yeah, and I had
judgment.
parents that also were so good at listening and acknowledging and taking their own responsibility, so I didn't have to carry the burden by myself.
I think that's huge.
It was huge.
Huge.
It was huge.
When parents try and tell you that you're wrong, what you're thinking or seeing or smelling or feeling, none of that happened. How are you going to heal from that?
Yeah, it's
takes
very
a long
hard.
time.
Yeah, you have to almost divorce yourself from those people, and
yet they still are
can't.
like, I love you, but those things didn't happen.
and
You're like, I feel like I must be so confused.
Am I crazy?
But they didn't do that to you. And that's part of why you're so amazing now, why you are so strong, and why you're able to do all the things. And again,
Thank you.
your show last night, and your cast is amazing. Okay, can I just say, Heath, I brought Heath.
Yeah.
I'm like, Heath, and he hadn't seen,
He didn't know Steel Magnolias.
no. And I'm like, it's kind of a chick flick. It's a tear jerker or whatever. And so I brought him because he goes everywhere with me because I need him by my side.
Yeah.
And I ate the whole package of donuts that we got from Maverick prior. And he's like, you honestly didn't even save one for me. And it was like the first 10 minutes. I'm like, and he loved it. He's like, those women, this was the best thing I've seen in I don't know how long. He's like, I'm so glad we went. We came off the mountain, which is our favorite place, just to come down a day early to watch your film. And I have play. Sorry. See, this is how ignorant I am to it. But it was so good. You and the other women, and we can go. I mean, I can name them off if we need to, but I'm going to tell you they were amazing. Like it felt authentic. It felt even better than the movie when I saw it many times in the very far off future. But I'm going to tell you they were amazing. That Jane Williams. Oh my gosh.
Hilarious.
Everybody needs one of her in the family. Seriously.
Somebody just says it like it is.
Hello. F you. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I don't like you right now, but then I love you later.
Yeah. I know. It really was a phenomenal cast and a great experience. And I love the show because I love the story of friendship, and being there for each other and that not everything is perfect and it doesn't have to be.
And we're not all going through the same things
at the same time.
We're going through them together, like our own things, but together. Yeah. And that happens in the hair salon, right? Yeah. Like, I'm like, this is what happens when women get together in the hair salon. Like, there are no secrets.
Yep.
And then we all go back to our lives, but we only see each other like every 6, 8, 10 weeks.
Yep.
And you come back and you're like, why didn't you tell me about this? Well, because this is where we talk about it.
We talk about it right here. Yeah, it's been a great experience. They were all wonderful to work with, and I will be producing it in a few more venues, I'm sure, before I finally hang that one up.
You did a great job producing it. I read it and I'm like, she produced it. Like, I know it's already a movie that's been out there, but she produced it. She did such an amazing job. She picked just the right people for the cast.
Well, I had great directors. I had a great crew. I had a lot of great support. And it's just one of those timeless stories where, on your worst day, people are there and you'll get through it. And laughter through tears is my favorite emotion, is just the best line that was ever written, because that really is life.
Yeah.
We laugh through our tears. We can get there.
And we heal through our tears, I think.
We do.
Yeah.
It's chemically
healed
proven.
Through tears, yes.
That releases certain chemicals that, you need to cry to re-regulate your body. It's a real thing. Yeah. There's so much science behind all of the healing. So for me, for reading the books and doing the writing and narrative therapy and many, many things that I've done, I really think it goes back to having at least one person who believes you and supports you. And if we could just all start by believing. For me, there are so many survivors of childhood sexual abuse, assault, rape, incest, exploitation. And the worst thing you can do is to raise your eyebrow and say, oh, that you must have misunderstood. You shut them down, they never talk, and you can't heal when you're in silence.
Yeah.
They silence you, and that cannot happen anymore. If we're going to change this terrible pandemic of abuse and assault, we live in a rape culture. And in order to change that culture, we have to speak up, find the voices, and we have to be believed.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
I'm very sorry that you didn't have that, because I believe that that is the crowning jewel of why I was able to heal. I had parents, sisters, friends, a community that believed me And then they went to work supporting me.
Yeah, I don't know anybody that's ever had the support that you have, or anybody that's had been in a family that said, yes, everything she's saying is true. And here's how we were involved. And we are so regretful. And, you can judge us or not. We don't care. We love our daughter and we're here for her.
Yeah, it's really true.
That is a beautiful thing. That is
really
like
lucky.
love at the most amazing level. And that's what we all want. We just
It's
want to be
true.
loved.
That unconditional love. That's what I experienced. I was so lucky. And I want to give that to other people.
Yeah.
I want them to feel not only believed, but loved.
Yeah.
And somehow, I don't know how it works, but I
People
really
don't-
do love people.
People don't go around making stuff like that up unless they're really screwed up in the head. But why are they screwed up in the head? Something happened.
Yes.
So
It's true.
whether it's this, that, or the other, believe that they're hurting inside.
Yes.
And they need somebody to listen, to love, to understand, to work it all out.
Yeah.
They could be so confused.
Absolutely.
They could be so confused. They don't even know.
Which way's up?
No.
Yeah.
How do which way am I going for air? I'm
Yeah,
drowning.
when you're buried in the snow, you don't know which way to dig.
Yes.
Am I digging myself deeper or am I digging towards the top? You don't know.
The
Oh.
light's not there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just so grateful for you because there's not a lot of people out there that can tell your story the way that you're able to, because a lot of doubt and misbelief and, negative or people saying the reverse. But everything that you're talking about, you have the support and the belief and the conviction
Yeah.
of everybody in your life. So your story for me is one that I want everybody to know and hear, because your truth is supported so widely, and nobody else that I've ever talked to has had that kind of support,
Yeah.
which you should feel so grateful.
I
And
am.
I can tell because you're so successful and you don't hold anything back, and you don't seem like the person that's, jealous, envy, you don't have any hangups.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty free from all of those things. And I don't think it would have happened if I had not had the family and the 12 years of a great childhood, that I had a foundation, so that those next 4 years from 12 to 16, kidnapped twice, sexually assaulted and raped hundreds of times, brainwashed with a real, truly alien voice in my ear, and coming out of all of those things, I just feel like I had a foundation. There was something so solid about the foundation that I was so lucky to have been raised with. And I will be forever grateful for that anchor that my father was, and for that steady boat ride that my mother always was. She was just so steady. My dad was the artist, emotional, but an anchor for gratitude. I mean, for faith, for family, for hope, for positivity. My dad was just the embodiment of those things.
And they didn't have an ego to where they were not willing to just be honest
Yeah.
about what happened, because they knew it was a wrongdoing by somebody else.
Yeah.
And whether you want to judge them or not, they're willing to do that and be honest for their daughter.
Yeah, because they both said at different times, they were like, well, if it helps one other parent know that this is how they might be being manipulated, because the person abusing their child is somebody at the family reunion
I'll
or
take
somebody
that
at the
sacrifice.
church. Okay, we're going to tell the truth 100% vulnerably, honestly. I think they're the bravest people I know,
The bravest. The bravest. Because most people would just, and a lot of people that actually don't want to come out and talk about it, honestly don't even think it's true in their own head.
Yeah.
They mentally cannot come to grips with it because it would ruin their psyche. Like when you said you would you were going to go to that camp, and when you were done, depending on what happened, you were going to kill your sister and yourself.
Yeah.
Like you were already planting, just like the Mendez brothers, which I feel like they should be released from prison right now, like a long time ago after hearing their story.
I know.
Which is in like a controversial subject, but in my heart, if what they're saying is true, I 100% think that they should really be released.
And you know what they need? What they need to do is to figure out a different way to prove that we're telling the truth. Because just from the dialogue, if that was the real dialogue that they had in court, that those actors were portraying, I'm like, you can't make that stuff up.
You can't say I was having a mouth massage at that age.
You do not make that up.
I will never be the same person just by hearing some of the things that they had to go through.
Yeah. So knowing that it was a scripted reenactment, but based on the
they were separated in prison.
Yeah. And based on the actual documents from the legal proceedings, those were the words that they were given in the script to say based
when
on
they
what
were not
they
even
actually
able to talk
said.
to each other.
Right. I'm like,
they weren't
they're
convoluting this master
like,
plan.
They're telling the truth.
They were separated at some point, and they were too embarrassed to talk about it.
Of course.
Yet the younger brother was ready to talk about. The older brother was not.
Right.
But then they were separated in prison because of something that happened, and they both had the same story.
Yep.
And the same little like words like the mouth massage, which you can go watch the movie. We can't talk about it on this show, but these things.
Yep.
So
those are the kinds of things where someone like me and you, people that have been through some things in life, you listen to that and you go, they're telling the truth. You know it. But we need a way to prove that. Like hook up something to their brain that shows the parts that light up that are the lying parts and the parts that light up that are telling the truth part. We must have this science somewhere so that we can find a different way than just DNA. And not that you should then go shoot and kill your parents. I'm not saying that's the answer, but you have to take into consideration what happened in order to drive somebody to that point too, if you're going to interrupt the cycle of abuse. Because now the new statistics are 1 in 2 women and girls will be sexually assaulted and abused before the age of 21, and 1 in 3 men or boys. Those are the new statistics. And I'm like,
it's probably just going to increase.
How do we live with that? I'm like, we have to do something about it. But the only way to interrupt the cycle is to believe people and get them help to mitigate the abuse and the trauma that is now lodged in their brain and in their central nervous system and in their somatic systems of their body so that they can recreate, reprogram, and relive in the world and not be at that arrested development in that state where the brain is on high alert and just trying to keep them alive, and they can't process life. They can't.
Their life doesn't need to be over at that moment.
That's right.
Where can we find somebody that can help them to the next stage, to the next chapter, to where they can thrive again like they were supposed to when they were born?
Exactly.
And those are the people we need to seek out. I want to tell you right now, like I have done my podcast only. It's been a philanthropy kind of situation. I have paid for it. It's not inexpensive. Same as you. We are here just to help people understand that they're not alone. But I would love to find a therapist or a handful of them, 1 in every state, 1 in every county eventually.
Yes.
That is willing to say, I am here for those people. I want to help those people who are almost beyond repair to come back in society and be able to live without, these stigmas that
surround them and shroud them.
Yeah. You're in prison 10, 15 years. You come out, you don't even know how to live.
Right.
When we're not even talking about imprisonment, when you've been imprisoned by abuse, and especially to that degree, you need so much help. You need reprogramming to the next level. And they say like if you've been abused for like 15 years, it takes 7 years for you to unravel, reprogram, and be like normal, right?
Yeah.
You're talking 21 years. Then you're in prison another 20 years. You're 40, 50. we need help.
Yes.
We need a program out there. We need some sort of education where we can mass produce based on the statistics that you just talked about, people that can help people in this state of mind.
Yep. That are specifically trained to deal with sexual assault and abuse, because I believe that
mental abuse,
emotional abuse, I believe that abuse
of any kind
at the core root of every other problem. Oh, you were a drug addict? Who abused you? What happened first? What happened before that? You can take almost any, you've been in a domestic violence situation, you had to run and go to a shelter. What happened before that? What happened when you were 4? What happened when you were 8, 12, 16?
And sometimes those people don't even know what happened because they
don't remember.
No.
Their brains totally shut it down so they can survive.
Exactly. Survival mode.
Yep. I think we're on the same page. Well, let's see. We're going to conquer the world.
I think we're going to have another show. Okay. I think we're going to have a few shows because I feel like out of everything I've done so far, like you're like the key to somebody that is understanding where I'm trying to go with this.
Yeah.
And I'm not here to spend a bunch of money on something that's not going to have an effect. And it's not really about the money. And
right.
Blue Form Media, they're amazing. They produce this show. They have really supported everything that I've, been the message that I've been trying to get out there. And they know that like, I don't want to talk about what my day job is. I don't want to try and promote myself like what I do for a living. This isn't about that. But you have got to somehow help me find a way to offset the cost to be able to help other people.
Yes.
Not through my business. I don't need that. I need people, counselors.
Yep.
Rehabs.
Yes.
Those kind of mediation. I want to find people out there, and I'm hoping they'll listen to my podcast. They'll listen to your podcast. They'll understand the need.
Oh,
they'll
huge.
sponsor us to help. Like if you have a program, a facility, an education in this background, reach out to us. Tell us. We have people that need help all over. Let's start a foundation nationwide.
Yeah, I started a foundation, so we'll partner.
There we go.
I already have my 501c3.
There we go. We'll start it here, but we need it to grow and grow and grow.
Education, you mentioned that. That's my foundation is based on 3 things: healing those who've been harmed, education for prevention, and changing public policy and legislation and laws. So those are the 3 pillars, and that's what I'm working on. And I want. Come on,
I'm on your side, girl. I am right there.
Yeah.
Let's put our dollars to work. Like, together we can make a difference. And I was taught that by somebody who counseled me after, the things that I had been through. And he made such an impact in my life. And he's like, I'm going to change the world. And I kept thinking, how are you going to change the world? He's like, Nicole, if I change your life and a couple other lives and those lives get changed, and then you see the and
that ripple effect.
And it took me 7 years to get it. And I was like, oh my goodness, it is true. It can happen.
It can.
And I'm responsible to keep that going.
Yep.
And so are you.
Yeah.
I
know. I'm ready to, I want a movement to happen. And I've already seen so much happen since I first told my story. And I've seen people open up and start telling their stories. And I think I had a little bit of something to do with that. And I just want to now get to the point where that movement is real.
Yeah, where those people that you've affected are now affecting other people, because we have to double, triple, quadruple down.
Yes. Okay, well, I'll come back.
I'm here for it.
We'll have more podcasts.
Can I hug you?
Of course.
Okay,
oh my
let's
gosh.
do it.